research and all sorts of stuff. I recommend you check it out. Your latest pieces, Alasdair, are called Too Much Liquidity and Inflation, Asset, and Consumer Prices. So this is definitely the biggest theme of 2021, and that is inflation. Even the U.S. Federal Reserve is admitting now that there is quite a bit of inflation. The numbers are over 5%, the official numbers that they report to the U.S. And however, first of all, is this inflation transitory, as they say, or do you think this is going to be a bit more permanent, as the head of the Central Bank of Russia has recently just said?
I'm afraid it's a bit more permanent than transitory. The problem basically is that you can see, going back to March last year, how commodity prices just took off. And they took off at exactly the moment that the Fed decided to do QE of 120 billion a month. And not only that, but as we come out of lockdown, we find two things. Firstly, there's a complete logistical foul up. Nothing is getting delivered. We went into it with just-in-time inventory management, which means there was nothing on the shelves. And on top of that, we find to our displeasure that people, having stopped working, don't want to go back to work. So you can see that there is not the product available to match all that money that's been handed to the consumers. And the consequence is quite simple. Prices rise. And not only do they rise, but they will continue rising until that situation is sorted out at the minimum. But of course, the monetary inflation continues. So will it ever get sorted out? I'm afraid that it's actually a very serious situation, and it will only be a matter, I think, of a month or two, or perhaps even a few weeks before the currency markets begin to reflect the fact that interest rates have got to rise in order to protect currencies against the debasement that we have seen so far. So I think, as far as the Fed is concerned, I think they were trying very hard not to precipitate a situation which is already there. But I'm afraid it is there. It is not transient. It is permanent, and it's going to prove to be extremely expensive for the consumer.
So you talk about 120 billion money printing per month, or QE per month. So my question is this: we came through an era of programs, various programs, whether it's QE1, QE2, the TARP bailout after the 2008 crisis. But it seems like we fundamentally entered into a new era where they're not even trying to create these programs. They're just saying this is an automatic line item every month, 120 billion printed. And so we've entered into a new era where there is actually, this is an outstanding feature of policy now. It's no longer a program. It's no longer responding to anything, but it's a reinterpretation of the economy from the most fundamental level. Alasdair.
Well, it started off in the wake of the Lehman crisis as extraordinary measures. And unfortunately, instead of the extraordinary measures going away, they have continued. And not only have they continued, but they've become yet more extraordinary. I mean, it is no solution. The problem, there was a phrase a little while ago about kicking the can down the road. I mean, it looks to me as if we're running out of road to kick that can down. Really, I'm afraid that the central banks have got themselves into one enormous mess on this, and it's very, very difficult to see how they can get out of it. And I know that I've mentioned before that really their objective has been to try and keep the show on the road, kick that can down the road, as it were, by puffing up asset values, by ensuring that the yields on US Treasury bonds don't rise, that they are suppressed, that we all get a wealth effect from rising stock prices, to which they can now add cryptocurrencies. I mean, there's this sort of, we've got to keep fueling the bubble, keep pumping the bubble. And that's really what they've been doing. But of course, there comes a point where you can no longer do that. And this is the importance of the inflation message that we're getting, because it will mean that interest rates have got to rise. What happens to that asset bubble? The asset bubble collapses. It's as simple as that. Now, as soon as that begins to happen, we then look and see, what is the Fed's response going to be? Well, the answer is quite simple. They're going to have to up QE from 120 billion a month to, say, 200 billion a month, maybe 250 billion a month, in order to keep the asset bubble inflated. So, I mean, can we imagine this? This is yet more extraordinary measures. It is absolutely crazy. And there is actually no way out of it. They've basically run out of road.